In this video, I'm going to introduce you to tuples. Some key features of tuples that they are immutable, meaning that once you create one, the elements cannot be modified after creation. They are ordered. The order of the elements is preserved and predictable. They are indexed, so you can access the elements by an index starting at 0. They support slicing, so you can get subsets of the elements. They support packing and unpacking. Packing is where you put a number of elements into a single variable, and unpacking is where you put the elements of a tuple into multiple variables. And they support heterogeneous elements, meaning that each tuple can store different data types. Common tuple methods are the count and index method. Since tuples are immutable, they don't get a bunch of methods to work on them like lists do. The count method retrieves the number of occurrences of a specified value, and the index method returns the index of the first occurrence of a specified value and erases an error if the value is not found. If we jump into the development environment here, you'll see that I have a variable numbers set up and ready to go to create a tuple, and the print function to output it to the terminal. So there are a number of different ways to create a tuple, and the first one that I will show you is the parentheses. An empty set of parentheses will create an empty tuple. Now, if I wanted to add some elements here, I would just simply separate them by a comma. And if I run this, we'll see that I get a tuple containing 1, 2, and 3. However, if I tried to create a tuple with just a single element with some parentheses around it and run this, we'll see that I get an output of 1 without the parentheses on it. That is because this is an integer. And if I wrap the type function around numbers in the print function here, and run this, we'll see that we get the output class integer because it is an integer. So to actually create a single element tuple, I have to put a comma after the 1. And now when I run this, we'll see that I get the output class tuple. And the reason being is because the parentheses are actually not what creates the tuple. It is the comma that creates the tuple. So if I do just the element 1 with the comma and run this again, you'll see that I still get the output of class tuple. So the reason to use the parentheses is to make it obvious that it's a tuple and to prevent any syntactic ambiguities. So I'm going to use the length function as an example here, and I'm going to try to pass it 1, 2, and 3. But I'm trying to pass it a tuple 1, 2, and 3. But if I remove the type constructor here and I run this, I'm actually going to get an error because length takes exactly 1 argument. So that's why I would pass this tuple in here with parentheses so that there's no syntactic ambiguity with what's the tuple and what are our positional arguments for the length function. So now when I run this, I get the output of 3 because my tuple is 3 elements. Another way to create a tuple is by using the tuple function, which is just the word tuple and then a set of parentheses. And if I were to run this, we'll get the output of an empty set of parentheses indicating it's an empty tuple. And if I mouse over the tuple function, it'll tell us that it takes an iterable. If no argument is given, the constructor returns an empty tuple. And if the argument is a tuple, the return value is the same object. So what that means is that whatever value I pass into these parentheses must be an iterable object. So strings, lists, other tuples, anything that's iterable. If I were to pass in the string hello here, it's going to return a tuple containing the individual characters hello. And if I run that, we'll see that down here. If I wanted to pass in a list, I would have to put it in square brackets and then do my elements inside the list separated by commas. And now I will get the tuple back 1, 2, 3. And that is it for creating tuples.